Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Talk of the Town. I am here with a familiar face and a less familiar face who we will soon introduce. Anyway, the familiar face, as you probably know, it belongs to our animal control officer, Katie Kozikowski. And longtime viewers of ACMi programming might remember that we were right here on this spot, virtually at the same spot in the APD parking lot to meet Katie in the first months of her time as an animal control officer. Mm-hmm. Well, we were surprised on our way, or when we got here, to find out that this is going to turn into a kind of exit interview because, well, I'll let Katie explain.
I recently accepted a position with the North Andover Police Department where I'll be their animal control officer, where it's a little bit closer to home, so it's a little bit shorter of a commute. So that will save me some time and energy in the morning and get me a little bit more sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we don't want to discount that. Let's start, and we'll talk a lot more about that and about your time in Arlington in the rest of our conversation. But let's not go any further without introducing our friend here.
So this is my foster dog. She's been with me for a couple of months. She's going to be hanging out while she's got some surgery that she needs to have done at the shelter that she's from. But she's been hanging out with me for a little bit. She's playing with my dog and having the time of her life right now.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of dog is she?
She's either a full Papillon or a Papillon mix. We're not 100% sure, but she's about 11 years old, so she's a little older. But she still plays like a puppy and runs around. She does a really good job, actually.
Right, and 11 years old, is that, is she still likely to be around for a while, assuming she can get, the surgery to take care of the stuff that she's got going on?
Yeah, I think so. She, she still definitely has a lot of activity. We did a 4-mile hike yesterday. She did part of it in my backpack, though. But she did a pretty good job. But yeah, little dogs can definitely live up towards like 18, 20 years if they're well taken care of. So I think after she has her surgeries, as long as everything goes well, then I feel like she could be around for a lot longer.
Well, I have to say that I think about a 4-mile hike for you, and then I'd look at those legs there, and I got to imagine that's marathon or more for her.
Well, yeah, she does a lot of it in my backpack, and she's pretty content just sitting there looking at all the scenery.
Yeah, especially because I guess an issue right now is with one of her legs, so
yeah,
it's not the time for her to be going on big treks.
Yeah. So, but she enjoys it.
All right. Well, we also met you, when we first met you, you had your own dog who you've also referred to. And I know that Arlingtonians are probably somewhat familiar with your dog because she accompanies you on a lot of your daily travels, right?
Yeah, she does. She, not so much anymore because she doesn't really like the car too much. But she will come in every so often. She was doing some calls with me, walking around with me when I first started. That was Winnie. Still have her, don't worry. But she's doing really good too. She really likes Gracie. She likes coming in, seeing all the police officers and everybody that's in town too, and meeting some dogs. Other dogs don't necessarily like her so much, but she does a good job.
So how long has it been, or will it have been, your tenure in Arlington?
So in August would be 3 years. So I started August of 2015.
Okay, so closing in on 3 years. We're talking right now in the spring of 2018, and it almost feels like actual spring.
Yeah,
we were with you about a year ago in McClellan Park, talking about what was supposed to be spring, and it was, I think, a March date, and we were there with a lot of snow around us, and we were just trying to imagine what was going to be happening.
Yes, I just watched that actually the other day, and it was very cold out that day. I remember that day very well.
Mm-hmm. So we are here though at the mid-April, and tell us a little bit about what people can expect going forward. In terms of animal sightings. What kinds of things they might want to be vigilant about or be on the lookout for, anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So coming up in the springtime, you're going to start to see babies, everything, every type of baby around here. So raccoons, squirrels, you're going to see baby birds, pretty much anything you can think of, turkeys, all that good stuff. The most important thing that people should know is if you see a baby, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're abandoned or they're injured. A lot of people will call in about baby birds or adult birds thinking that they're injured when actually it's a fledgling. Or fledglings will spend 1 to 2 days on the ground, and the mom will come down, feed them, take care of them, and then within those 2 days they learn how to fly on their own. So a lot of people think that they're injured or they have a broken wing because they've seen them on the ground and they're not getting up. Whereas if you take them away from their home, you take them away from their mom, they have a much less likelihood of surviving because they're not getting the proper nutrients from their parents. And same with raccoons and squirrels too. Like a lot of them, you'll see them if they fall from their tree and it's not too far and they're just waiting and the mom's coming down and taking care of them. They will do that. A lot of them don't abandon their babies. People just think they do because mom is off hiding in the distance because she doesn't want to attract more predators to her nest or to her baby that's on the ground.
So takeaway then is that if you do see what looks like a baby or a fledgling or a small animal on his or her own, just leave them there?
The best thing is to leave them. You can monitor them, like if it's in your yard and you want to keep an eye on them for the next couple days or so. If you find poop in your backyard, you know that they're eating because they're going to the bathroom. If you see stuff around them that's moved, like for example, if you have a baby rabbit's nest or a baby bunny's nest in your backyard, you'll never ever gonna see the mother. It always stays away because the mother doesn't want to attract predators to the nest either. But if you put something like flour around the outside and then you see footprints, you know she's coming back to take care of the babies too. But oh hi, yeah, you hear a dog barking. Hi Gracie.
Yeah, decided that it hadn't had enough attention just yet.
I guess not.
Make sure the cameras and the mics are catching that. So we know that springtime, as you just mentioned, in the animal kingdom is similar to with flora as well, and everywhere things are budding, things are coming back to life, et cetera, or coming to life, and in terms of baby animals, et cetera. What about the other end of the spectrum? Are predators now also, reappearing, or have they been kind of present throughout the winter months anyway?
I think a lot of them they've been present throughout the winter months, but now there's more for them to eat, as in like means from the trees and stuff like that too. And more people, if they're leaving their garbage out unattended or anything, you might see them a little bit more because they are reproducing too, and they have to go out and find food not just for them anymore, but for their nest or their babies or whatever's back home. So they're going to be out picking through stuff and making sure they can bring it back to feed their kids. So you definitely, I think you'll definitely see a lot more now than in the winter times, but I know.
So when I know from previous conversations that we've had that in general, you just don't want to put yourself right into the middle of any kind of, animal interaction or where a family is nesting or happens to wherever they call home, et cetera.
Yeah.
Are there things though that people should, right away if they see, hey, this is one of those things that you definitely should call, well, I guess your successor is who they're going to have to call now, but where they should get on the line for the animal control officer right away?
Yeah, if something looks injured, if it's bleeding, if it's dragging a leg or something that is obvious that there's something going on with them, then yeah, definitely call. Like the Animal Rescue League is a good resource. Tufts and Grafton is a good resource too. They can't drive up here to pick them up, but if it's a safe animal for a person to pick up and bring to them, then they'll gladly take them to help try and rehabilitate them if they can. If with bigger animals, you want to be really careful if it's a raccoon or something like that, if they're injured, because any mammal can carry rabies. And if the animal is hurt, then they're more likely to be aggressive, because think of if you had a broken arm and somebody came up and moved you, that's going to hurt you a lot more than if you were just sitting still. So the best thing is to reach out first to a company, the Animal Rescue League, some type of rescue group, or the police department, and ask their opinion first before you touch anything, because you never want to be injured. You don't want to catch diseases from those animals too. But you also want to keep in mind that if there are babies around, that a mother will protect their babies. So you never want to approach an animal, especially a baby animal, because if mom is hiding somewhere and she feels that her baby is threatened, she might come after you too.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're looking back on at least three previous springs here. Mm-hmm. How often are you getting calls? Do the calls that you're responding to, does that ratchet up as we move through April and May and into the summer?
Definitely. So the winter time it's a lot more calm. People, like a lot of animals, tend to be sleeping a little bit more. The summer, springtime is when they're going to come out, when babies are going to start to come out. Babies get stuck in things, like bunnies get stuck in hockey nets, squirrels get stuck in window wells. They just do not the smartest things, which I'm there to help with. There's also more people out during the spring and summertime too, so that's why they're also more likely to see those kind of animals, because instead of being inside sitting by the fire, they're outside playing with the kids at the park, and that's where they tend to see a lot of this stuff. But yeah, the calls, especially in the summertime, it's like rapid fire, where you get a phone call for an animal and you got to go out. And most of them, I'd say, like in the summertime, probably 75% of them are wildlife calls. So.
Well, I want to ask you, I know that, you're mostly got to be focused on, I know all of this has happened fairly suddenly in your life and you're going to be moving on relatively soon. But I wonder whether you're also taking a couple of minutes to think back on the 3+ years that you've been here, and whether you have a couple of stories that you could share with us, either about very strange things that have happened, or something that's memorable for you to share with the audience.
Yeah, one of the first weird things, that not really weird, but difficult things that I had to try and figure out, because when I started, I wasn't too fond of birds. I'm still not very fond of birds, but I rescued a swan from trying to get over the fence onto Route 2. So it was on the access road, and thankfully a big bus came by to help me kind of trap him in somebody's driveway. So I was able to throw a net over him and throw a blanket over him, and he was quite large, he probably weighed like 35 pounds, and I was able to get him into my truck. And then I got down to Menominee Rocks Park, which was the closest water source to them, and I had a whole bunch of people there with their dogs. It was during off-leash hours. They all kind of spread apart to give the swan some space and help me release him back into the water, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, a real kind of communal enterprise.
No, everybody did an excellent job, and they were very respectful of giving him space and making sure they kept the dogs back, and that the bird they actually kept an eye on him for a couple of days until he took off, to make sure that he was able to get kind of enough of a runway to get out of there, which he successfully did. And
so how do you, it sounds, obviously it came right to your mind, so it's clearly a singular type situation or a rare one. Do you speculate about, how did the swan get himself into that situation, or? I
literally have no idea how he got there. I don't know if he was if someone was feeding him and then other yards continued to feed him and he was kind of following the source of the food. Sometimes you'll see ducks in weird areas like that, or trying to cross the road when they lay their eggs, and then once they hatch, they try and get to a water source. So like last year, I got a couple of calls from ducks trying to cross Mass Ave, and we would just go out there and stand there and wait till they cross. Weirdly enough, like one of the times was in a crosswalk too, which was really helpful. But yeah, when they lay their eggs, they look for a safe spot, but they don't think of the trail to get there and make sure that that's safe. A lot of times with turtles too, like the snapping turtles, there was one that was trying to cross Lake Street that we helped get across to the other side of the road, which, when thinking of that, you want to keep in mind, if you see a turtle trying to cross the road, help him get to the side that he is going to, because if you put him back, he's literally 2 seconds later just going to try and get over there. Yeah.
Well, I think it must be part of every animal control officer's rite of passage or something to make way for ducklings, as you were just saying, to be able to do that. But very nice that they were smart enough to use the crosswalk at least on one occasion. And anything else that that comes to mind? I asked you, for a couple of anecdotes. I let you tell one, and then I interrupted you. So
that's totally fine. I do actually have a couple of things that I've done that were kind of weird. One of the first really fun things that I did last year was I did help ducklings get out of the sewer drains, because a lot of times when they're crossing the road too, they're also not looking down, and the mom can walk over the sewer grate, and then the little babies pluck their way right through the hole. Yeah. So
really?
Last year it was really cool because the fire department and the DPW came down. They helped me pull up the little sewer grates, and then we kind of flushed some water down to get the ducklings out too. But they all survived. It was
amazing.
Really cute.
Yeah, because you can imagine the mother going across the grate and just.
They just plunked right
she
down.
Looks back and she's got half of her brood or something.
She'll stay around too, and usually you can tell that they're down there because she'll fly around screaming until somebody comes, and then she kind of sits back and just watches. And once you bring the little ducklings up, you have to make sure they're warm so they're not freezing going back to mom. But once they warm up, they run right back over to her, and then they're on their way like nothing ever happened. So.
And anything about the town itself that you're, that's going to stick with you? Obviously, you were new to Arlington at the time that you started this job, and you'll be moving back closer to home, as you said. But did you have any observations about just dealing with Arlingtonians, the animals in Arlington, etc.?
So people here are very, very willing to help with everything. I'll actually combine these two things. There's another weird story where there was a dog who was going after a mom possum and her babies, and we were able to get permission from the homeowner because the dog had gone under the house to get them. So we had next door neighbors coming out helping us. I actually had to go under the house to pull the dog away because she potentially could be at risk for rabies because of a possum, whereas it's not likely that they're going to have it. We still want to make sure she gets away from them. We don't also want her to end up harming those babies too. So that was kind of a weird, we had to dig under the house so I could get in there and pull everybody apart, get the dog out, save the babies, and there were neighbors all around willing to help and do whatever they could. And that's like a lot of times, even when those ducklings that were there too, a lot of times if they see something going on, like a lot of people are attracted to my truck because it's animal related. They want to know what's happening, how they can help. If I'm looking for a dog, yesterday I was looking for a dog on the parkway, and immediately some woman came over and she was like, "How can I help you? What are you looking for?" And she drove up and down looking for him for me too. So it's, I will say here, people are very willing to help, very friendly, especially with animal stuff. So I will miss that. I hope North Andover's like that.
Yeah. It sounds like you could deputize whoever's around.
I know.
Just about. That must have been very helpful. Yeah. So you will be moving on, as you said, to North Andover, and that's a fundamentally different kind of, environment than Arlington, densely populated Arlington, where, as you say, you're running into animals under houses or crossing major roads or stuff like that. What do you anticipate are going to be, obviously, you haven't started your job yet, but just what do you anticipate are going to be the kinds of things and the kinds of differences between what you've done here and what you'll be doing?
So there, I think, if I get these correct, I believe they're like 26 square miles, so like 30-ish thousand people there. So it is a lot different than like a 5.5 square mile town with 40-something thousand people in it. So I definitely think there's going to be a lot of wildlife calls, bigger wildlife too, like deer, that kind of stuff, just because they have like Harold Parker State Forest that's up there. They've got a lot of wooded area too, a lot of land. So I think it's going to be more along those lines. I don't think there's going to be as many like barking dog complaints, that kind of stuff, because people won't kind of be really close to each other like their houses are here. But that's, I guess I'm going to find out in a couple of weeks. So.
That's right.
But I feel like that's probably what it's going to be, more wildlife stuff. Although, I mean, like I said, I do a lot of wildlife here, which is going to prepare me for going up there. But just be a little bit different, I suppose.
I guess I'm curious about one more thing, and that is how much of what you have learned in doing your job did you learn on the job, and could you only learn on the job as opposed to in the training that you did to take the job?
Here. So I'd probably say like 80% of it is learned from doing the job. I went to the academy, I learned all the laws. I know what law is what Mass General law number they are and everything like that. So I learned how to do legal stuff that way. I mean, I've never picked up a swan before. I've never wrangled something that was trying to kill me before or anything like that. So you kind of have to figure it out as you're there and figure it out as you go along too, how to protect yourself, how to protect people around you, because like I said, people want to help, which means usually I have an audience for anything that I'm doing. So if it's a dangerous animal, you got to make sure that you're keeping in mind the audience that's around too, so that animal's not going to go after them. But you just kind of got to do it on the go, really, and kind of make it work out best for everybody.
So. And I guess that's what you're going to be doing as well in North Andover, which is figuring things out and kind of encountering situations you've never been in before, and just figuring things out from there.
Yeah.
Though it sounds like you may have less of an audience in general if you're talking about that kind of landmass and that kind of population. And
right.
We all know that North Andover has a little bit more of a rural feel than Arlington. Not too hard for that to happen.
Yeah.
But I hope, let us hope that if you ever encounter somebody who's trying to, as you said, you ever have to wrangle with something that's trying to do you harm, that you are going to either be able to take care of it yourself or be able to rely on some deputizable citizens of Andover as well.
And usually too, like I would get the police department involved before I would get a citizen, because I don't want them to get hurt, especially with dangerous stuff. But the police department's been extremely supportive. The police officers, if I ever need help, they're there immediately. So they have an excellent support system. They're really good about, if I call over the radio, like I said, they're there right away. They always make sure they have everybody's back.
Great.
So it's an excellent town to work for. So there was one instance where we got a call from a pregnant cat who was she was nervous about people
From a pregnant cat?
Oh, I'm sorry. From a cat who just had babies. The owner from the cat who just had babies. And the cat wasn't really pleased about people coming around her babies, which a lot of animals and people aren't really okay with that. But she wouldn't let anybody even in the house near her babies too. The police department had to go over, and every time you try and go on the front door, she would let you know she was there and start screaming at you. So that was an interesting call where we kind of had to sneak up behind her and get her in a net so we could get the family back in their home to make sure they could live there and be okay, and get her back with her baby so she could take care of them, because I think they were only probably less than a week old at that point too. But it just shows you how protective a mother will be of her babies, because before that she was a super nice cat, and after she was too. But during that like hormonal period where she just had her babies and she's being that protective mama, she's gonna do whatever she has to do to protect her kids.
Yeah, and it must be very interesting, I would think, to be a law enforcement officer who can't reason with the with the creatures you're interacting with.
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience. So you can't tell them, don't worry, I'm just here to help you, like you can a person. You can't sit there and negotiate with them, anything like that. You just gotta sit there, be patient, figure out what's best for the animal, the best way for you to help the animal without getting injured. And patience really is the key with that kind of stuff. So.
Well, Katie, it has been really a pleasure to have checked in with you periodically over the time that you've been here. Undoubtedly, we are going to miss you. And we do, of course, wish you the very best of luck in your new job. And we congratulate the folks of North Andover. They've scored a coup. And we will welcome you back at any time.
Thank you.
And do hope that you will come back and visit us at some point.
I definitely will. Arlington's a wonderful town, so I definitely will.
All right. For Katie Kozikowski, our soon-to-be Animal Control Officer, I'm James Milan. This is Talk of the Town, and thanks for joining us.